Morning everyone.
Morning.
There we go. Right, so as you probably guessed, I'm Phil Breen. I look after earned recognition on behalf of DVSA. We touched on it earlier in my colleague's presentation, but I'll go through it in a bit more detail, what the scheme is and why we've chosen to take this approach as an enforcement agency. So we're going to go through enforcement, a change in focus, the overview of the scheme itself, experience from some of our operators a year in. So I think it's a great scheme, but don't just take my word for it. I've got a few operators that enjoy being in the scheme. Details, so preparation, application, audit and monitoring. So what would be expected from you as an operator if you did want to join the scheme. And then where you can find out more information. So a change in our focus. So how we're touching it a little bit, the way that we enforce at the roadside. Now, we need to change the way that we enforce because as an agency, if we stay the same, we stay stagnant, those non-compliant operators know what we're doing. They know where we are, how we enforce, and they adapt and find ways around that. That was probably highlighted in things like the tachograph manipulation. People that don't want to be compliant will find a way around it. We've got to make sure that those opportunities to do that shrink. And we do that through a change in focus. So the first one there is our earned recognition. So these are for kind of our operators that are consistently compliant, can prove they're consistently compliant. There's a trust-based exercise there. We don't need to worry too much about them at a roadside point of view. We then move on to the other operators. So compliant operators and compliant operators with some small amount of support. They're dealt with by our REO or remote enforcement office. So we've got an office based over in Avonmouth where we've got examiners and staff there that will deal with these operators in a different way. It may be more of a desk-based approach, so it doesn't mean that you'll get your standard DVSA visit. It could just be a little bit of advice that will keep them compliant, basically. Then we move into our potential rule breakers. So this would be where we would enforce at the roadside. So those operators that they're getting very close to their driver's hours, potentially their service inspections, things like that are going ever so slightly over or very close to them. The non-compliant operators. So again, we will deal with them at the roadside, but we'll also deal with them on visits, investigations and assessments. So they're more likely to get a visit from DVSA. You're more likely to get stopped at the roadside than any other operator. And then finally, the serious and serial non-compliant. So this is where our continued focus will be, and this is where as an agency we think it should be. These are those operators that don't want to be compliant, may not even have an operator's licence, don't want to get their vehicles MOT'd, don't want to train their drivers. These are the ones that are trying to cut all the costs they possibly can for profit, and as a result try and undercut yourselves as compliant operators. They're the ones that go after the contracts that you want and they can afford to outbid you because there's no money going out into the business itself. We need to make sure that that's not the case. So what we do, we shift that balance basically. So with continuing focus and targeting at the roadside, those vehicles are going to get impounded more often. They're going to go to prosecution more often. They're going to go to public inquiry more often. They'll be picking up roadside fixed penalties more often. We'll be immobilising their vehicles more often. Suddenly it's not so cheap to be non-compliant. It's not cost effective to be non-compliant. So you either have to raise your standards as an industry or you have to get out of the industry. And that's where our focus will be. Right, there is a video presentation which will play on your own computers, not quite today unfortunately, but it basically just gives you an overview of the scheme itself. So basically in summary, earned recognitions for HGV and PSV fleets of any size. So recognising operators that go over and above, like I say, those operators that are continually compliant. So application involves implementation of approved IT systems for reporting KPIs or key performance indicators and an audit. From that initial audit, you can do that 3 months before or 3 months after your application process, and then another audit 2 years in. And then systems will digitally report driver and vehicle compliance in line with the KPIs, and IT systems will automatically monitor compliance with the periodic audit every 2 years. We do have concessions in place for maintenance. So it may be a case that all of your maintenance isn't done digitally currently, but we do have options in terms of partial reporting, more desk-based approach, scanning in PDF files, that type of thing. So it's very worthwhile speaking to myself or my team about what we can come up with for your business. We do try and tailor those concessions to your business needs. We don't want to make it more heavy in terms of labour for you to be able to qualify for earned recognition. And we don't have direct access to any of your IT systems. That's a big myth that's out there. Every single event that I go to, I get asked, well, how do you have access to my systems? We don't have access to your systems. I can assure you, me and my team are not there on a Saturday night looking through your data, trying to find a prohibition. That's not what we do. Your systems basically produce a report. That report then comes into our system, so there's no direct feedback. Right, so benefits. So you get recognised by the government as an operator that is over and above. Many of the operators use that as an advantage for bidding for contracts. So if you were to go up to a contract holder, you can say, well, I'm recognised by DFT, I'm recognised by DVSA as being an operator that's overly compliant. Can my competitors say the same thing? Less likely to be stopped at the roadside. So the only time that you will really get stopped by DVSA at the roadside when you're in earned recognition is if we see a visible defect. So something that's a real risk to road safety. So, you know, a wheel's about to come off, abnormal load, something along those lines really. Or for our fleet compliance. So fleet compliance is just a measure basically of the industry, and we have no real sway on what we target and that we don't target. We just stop the first vehicles that come past. So DVSA accredited operator using the earned recognition marquee and published on gov.uk. So you can use that earned recognition marquee, which is down there at the bottom of the screen, on your website, on your letterheads, on any of your promotional material. You'll probably see it dotted about the room today. We also do publicise you, so you are listed on our website on gov.uk that you are an operator within earned recognition. Social media team within DVSA also put out tweets to say that you're in earned recognition. So we do try and publicise the fact that you've met the standard. Efficiency savings by using digital monitoring systems. So all the feedback that we've had from operators is once they've put in for the systems, which naturally is starting to come through into the industry anyway, they've managed to save quite a bit of money. They've found issues before they happen. They've spotted trends. So as a result of that, they're not reacting to anything. What's the cost of an accident to yourselves as an operator or a business? You can spot that before that happens. Poor driving habits, things like that are picked up in advance. So you're able to stop them from happening, prevention rather than reaction. Dedicated contacts within the DVSA Earned Recognition team. So my team are there purely for operators within Earned Recognition. So you get a dedicated team to answer any questions you may have, not just about Earned Recognition, but anything from driver's hours to your maintenance to whatever it may be. I'll give you an example. The other week I had an operator, they'd been for MOT, human error, one of the digits was put in wrong on their MOT certificates. It does happen from time to time. But the operator rang up one of my guys and said, look, we've got a bit of an issue because I'm also going through all my insurance renewal at the moment, and technically the information that I'm going to produce isn't correct because the registration on the MOT cert isn't right. Can we get this sorted? So one of my guys put in a call and they got a new MOT cert within 2 hours. He said the same thing happened to me about 2 years ago, of which it took me 14 days to get that rectified. He said that alone is worth me joining the scheme, which is free to join, by the way. There's no fee for being in earned recognition. So there are future benefits. So we are working on some benefits coming in. We are negotiating things as well for benefits to come in. We do welcome any feedback. We go by what we think the industry will want. I do interact as much as I possibly can with the industry to find out what benefits they'd like, but if there are other benefits that you think would be beneficial to your business, please do let me know. I am here for the bulk of the day, and you'll get all my contact information throughout this presentation. So we've had a number of potential benefits been suggested. So they include MOT testing, so delegated testing. That would mean potentially being able to test your own vehicles at your own sites. The former Transport Minister did say that they were interested in that. I'm sure, as you can imagine at the moment, politically, not too much is going through there at the moment until the B word gets out the way. I won't mention it. But this is what we've been asked. Can we prove that you can safely test your own vehicles at your own sites? We've always been asked by the department to produce enough evidence where we can say, yes, we're confident they're safe to do this. We need a vehicle to do that though, and we haven't had a vehicle before earned recognition. If you've been in the scheme for 2 years, you've sent us through KPIs that are consistently compliant, we believe that there is enough evidence there to say that you're safe. Worst possible thing that could happen would be we send this out to industry to self-test your vehicles. One of those vehicles goes off from one of your sites and it has an accident and kills someone. We need to make sure that you can test your vehicle safely, and we think that you're compliant to do so. Domestic use exemptions, we've been looking into that at the moment, speaking to industry and trade bodies about it. ATF resource and approvals, so there's an ATF freeze currently across the country unless there's mitigating circumstances. But if that's to be removed, we believe that earned recognition operators should be at the front of the queue for that. Review of non-culpable prohibitions and a mobilisation action for an ER operator. So do some of the non-culpable prohibitions, should they be issued to earned recognition operators? If they're sending us KPIs all the time and there's been something outside of their control, should they be picking up a prohibition? Should they be immobilised? We know where they are. We've got a trusted relationship with them. So that's something that we're looking into as well. Exclusivity of contracts. So we've got a number of contracts that are coming through at the moment about where certain standards are already out there. So there are other schemes out there, things like FORS, Truck Excellence. So we're looking at us meeting that standard and being recognised by those contract holders. Additional modules for contracts. So we've got HS2 and TFL modules. So you probably all know HS2. I was all ready to launch that a couple of weeks ago, and I turned on my radio as I was driving somewhere and it said, oh, review of HS2. So currently HS2 is under review at the moment. We do have something in place for a module if that does get released. And what I mean by that is to get a HS2 contract, you would need to be an earned recognition operator or equivalent. Same for TFL as well, that's what we're looking into. OTC fast tracking, it's something that we're looking into. Is it a possibility that certain aspects of the OTC process could be fast tracked for earned recognition operators, as we have quite a lot of information from earned recognition operators. Insurance discounts. So ongoing discussions. I've spoken to the British Insurance Associations. They have recognised earned recognition now, and they are speaking to their members as we speak about potential benefits, discounts, things like that on premiums for insurance. Right, so a little bit more detail about the future development. So new modules. So like I said earlier, working with HS2 and TFL, seeking for implementation of optional audit modules. So what we looked at was some other schemes out there, you've got to have certain criteria across the board. So say for instance, you're up in West Yorkshire and there's a contract holder down in London and they say that you need to meet certain criteria to get one of their contracts. Under some of the other schemes out there, you would need to put that in all your fleets, all your depots across the board at the cost to you as an operator. We didn't really think that was fair. So what we've come up with is modules that you can pick. So say for instance, in central Birmingham, say a contract with, I don't know, a local council or a local business body, they may want something that's particular to Birmingham. But if you're operating outside of the city, you may not want to go for that contract. So why would you need to pay out for that module? So what we've done, we're going to do bespoke modules for all of these contracts, and you can pick the ones that you want, meaning you don't need to put that cost into your business across the board. You just pick and choose the ones that suit you. Counter-terrorism. So DFT have asked us to include CT standards into the recognition audit. So meaning operators will be pre-approved for critical national infrastructure contracts. So with the growing rate of vehicles being used as weapons in terrorism and things like that, we've been asked to react to that basically and put something in place to make those vehicles safer and those drivers safer. So that's coming in as part of the ER audit. An inclusive transport leader scheme, so ITLS. So DFT have approached us to see how ITLS could be incorporated into PSV ER. So we've had initial discussions and the next steps are to be discussed with stakeholders. So seeing what we can do in terms of exclusivity within the PSV world. They are very early talks, but we will have future developments about that. Right, so like I said earlier, I think this is a great scheme, but don't just take my word for it. I've got some quotes up there. So we've got Sam Hall there, operations manager from Lakeside Coaches. So he's saying that it's given us plenty of confidence that it was an elite scheme. Everybody wants to be the best at what they do. So he feels being part of that sets him apart from the rest. Leslie O'Brien from FreightLink. So she's really keen of getting rid of the cowboys from the industry. And if earned recognition is going to give DVSA more time to focus on them, then she's all for that. And last one now from Dave Archer. So he's saying vehicles on earned recognition don't require to be stopped at the roadside checks, dramatically cutting downtime and improving efficiency. Okay, so we've had some key achievements. So the scheme was launched in April 2018, so still relatively new scheme. So we've got over 240 operator licenses accredited and over 30 IT suppliers, over 20 approved industry-leading audit providers, an updated DVSA enforcement system to recognise any operators' ER status, including ANPR and NAS. So basically, as well as our examiners at the roadside know not to look at earned recognition operators, our systems will be picking them up as well, so you don't get stopped at the roadside. Now, we have got a list of approved IT suppliers and auditors on our website. What we didn't want to do as an agency was do that in-house. Reason being, we take business away from the industry. Part of this scheme is to try and grow the industry as much as we can. So there is a list of approved IT suppliers and audit providers on our website. So you've got a real variety there to choose from. Right, so the accreditation process. So we've got preparation, application, audit and accredited. So our website's got full details on how you can go through the scheme. I'm also about if you want to go through anything in more detail. My advice would always be read it fully. We get quite a few applications through with things like information missing, not signed, quite a large amount of things missing. And it just slows down the whole process. So I would encourage you to read it fully and make sure all your applications are complete. There are various auditors out there, so have a look through to see which one suits you. Right, so we'll go through preparation and take a little bit of a closer look. Right, so all operator licences controlled by the legal entity or group for a minimum of 2 years. So you may have various limited companies, you may have various trading names, they don't all need to go in at one point. However, if the legal entity is the same, then they would all need to go into your application in one point and a minimum of 2 years. Now, if you've had an operator licence and you've moved into a new company, so for example, if you've gone from a partnership and now you're operating as a sole trader because your partner's gone out of the industry, so you've had to have a new operator licence, we can review that and see whether or not you would still qualify to meet earned recognition. So it's always worthwhile just double checking with me and my team ahead of time. So full compliance of operators' licences involved in the application with no traffic commissioners action or history taken in the last 2 years. So what we're looking at basically that you've not been to a PI in the last 2 years, you've been hit with a big fine or your licence is curtailed, something along those lines. So good compliance history over the past 2 years, and then KPI standards that are being met for the past 3 months. Right, validated IT system. So operators will need to have a DVSA validated IT system for vehicle maintenance and driver's hours. So 29 accredited IT systems to choose from so far. They've got a broad range of services, prices and market competition. So there's a list of some of them that are out there. So you'll probably recognise a few of them. So we are there trying to add as much choice as possible for you guys as an industry. Right, so we'll look into the application now. So you can visit our website, which is www.gov.uk/DVSA/earned recognition. And all the forms, all the scheme guides and that promotional video is available there. So operators can complete a self-assessment checklist and discuss with an IT provider. You know, if you are going to use an IT provider or an auditor, my advice is always get as much advice from them as possible. Use their knowledge, use their know-how. They've done it before, so why not speak to them? And of course, you can always speak to me and my team. So read the guidance notes and complete the application form. Audits in the next section may be conducted 3 months before or 3 months after application review date. So this is completely up to you. So if you have just had an audit for whatever reason, don't feel you can't now go for recognition that you've got to wait. You've got 3 months. Scheme's free to join. I will push that as much as possible. Everyone loves a freebie. There's no charge. We're not imagining there's going to be any charge for it either. We are obviously a government agency. We're not there to make profit from this scheme. We are there to make our roads safer. So operators need to be with an approved IT provider that can measure and report on the KPIs. Operator systems and processes must be audited by a DVSA authorised audit provider at application and then again every 2 years. And operators may need to pay for this depending on the provider they choose. So we don't set those fees, the providers do. So that's why I always say it's worthwhile shopping around a little bit. And the benefits of cutting downtime and improving efficiency can offset these costs. So moving on to the audit now. So the earned recognition audit. So it must be carried out by a DVSA authorised audit provider. So there's numerous to choose from. Like I said, they're all listed on our website. And there's 2 sets of audit standards that we look at. So one for HGV operators and one for PSV operators, each with 9 sections. So operator licence, transport manager, vehicle standards, driver's hours, operational management, driver management, training and driver behaviour, driver related policies. And section 9, so that will either be for dangerous goods in HGV operators, service work for PSV operators, and section 9 is only audited if you carry out those activities. So as a competent operator, we would imagine that you're already looking into all of those points. So there shouldn't be anything that's jumping out that's a little bit worrying that you don't already do. So the audit process itself. So the auditor will look at the process involved in your systems, your transport management systems, and how your systems manage compliance. So on the day of the audit, operators need to make sure that all the information the authorised audit provider needs is available. The transport manager or other responsible person is available, and any questions the authorised audit provider asks can be answered. The completed audit document is signed. So yeah, we do get a lot of documents sent through that aren't signed. It just delays the process for everyone. It's something so simple, so I would hammer that home to yourselves. So pass or improve. So if operators have invested in preparation, DVSA will work with you to get an operator to the required ER standards. So if you do fall just below that, or there are issues that are picked up on the audit, don't think it's the end of the world. Me and my team are there to try and help you get to where you need to be as a compliant operator and how to stay there. So if operators do not meet the required standards and the auditor is satisfied that standards can be met, an improvement plan can be agreed with the operator and the auditor. An additional verification audit will be required after an improvement plan, and flowcharts are available for this on gov.uk. So if there are certain points, there's certain issues that you've fallen slightly behind, but you can prove to me that there's evidence in which you can implement something in a reasonable time that's going to be compliant and going to raise you to the standard that you need to be, that doesn't mean that you can't then come into earned recognition. We'll work with you, not against you as an operator. I appreciate it's a different approach from us as an agency, and changing that mindset in the industry, I appreciate may take a little bit of time, but this is a trust-based exercise. We're trusting you as compliant operators. So monitoring. So as I said, reports are produced for vehicle systems and also your driver activities. They then feed through and measure your KPIs, your key performance indicators. Then they are sent onto our earned recognition system. So if there are any issues, we'll pick up on them and we'll speak to yourselves as operators. It's not the end of the world if you fail one of the KPIs or fall slightly below. There will always be that odd driver. There may even be an odd couple of drivers. There will always be that odd vehicle, and we appreciate that. We're not saying you've got to be perfect. What we're saying is we want you to be compliant, and we will help you to stay compliant as long as you work with us. So like I said, it's a one-way system, and I will hammer this home again this point. We do not have access to your IT systems, okay? Your systems transmit reports to us for our secure one-way connection, so we can't feed into your systems at all. Right, so how trigger points work. So I know trigger may not sound the nicest of words, but basically all that it is, it's an alert really. It's just explaining that there's been a slight issue and that we need to work with you on that, and also to alert you as an operator that there's been a slight issue. So the operator systems will monitor the KPIs for 4 weeks in arrears and will alert any KPI breaches. So there's 3 types of alerts: yellow, amber and trigger. So yellow alerts are a minor KPI breach, so up to 1% above the KPI. Amber alert is moderate KPI breaches, so between 1 and 2%. And then grey alert is a major KPI breach, so 2% and above for a KPI. So KPI monitoring has built-in rules to alert exemption reports to DVSA, and if an alert is generated, DVSA will contact and work with the operator to address the issue. Like I said earlier, if you do get a trigger, if you do get a KPI alert, it's not the end of the world. We'll find out what's happened and prevent it from happening again. They do happen from time to time, but so far there isn't an operator that we've not been able to work with to come to a solution and for them to stay compliant. So driver-related KPIs. So we'll look at overall infringement rate, 4 fixed penalty bans, current legislation, so what you would pick up at the roadside, so you kind of your £50 to your £300 fixed penalties, working time directive, PSV domestic driver's hours rules, KPIs are measured using driver allocated systems or DAS, and then monitoring daily and fortnightly rest. So they're the ones that we'll look for driver related. Moving on to vehicle KPIs. So for maintenance, completion of set of safety records, we'd expect there to be 100% of your safety records there. Safety inspection records completed correctly and signed off, so 100% is what we'd expect there. Safety inspections are completed within the stated frequency, 100% is what we'd expect to see there. Driver defect reports where road safety related items have been reported are appropriately actioned, 100%. So what we don't want to see is drivers have picked up there's an issue with the vehicle and it's left, and it's left, and it's left, and guess when it's picked up? When there's been an accident or an incident. No one wants that, we don't want that. As compliant operators, I'd hope you wouldn't want that. So we'd expect 100% of that. Vehicle and trailer initial pass rate 95%. So we appreciate that's quite high. Again, we can look into that if there's PRSs and things like that, and we will consider all avenues. So why do we do this? So that's Marion Kitson. She's the Director of Enforcement for DVSA, and she stated, we enforce the rules to help keep everyone safe. Earned recognition means we can target our resource towards the serial and seriously non-compliant. So just to echo really what Marion is saying, as an agency, if we stay exactly the same and we don't move with the times, those that are non-compliant know where we are. They know where our check sites are, so they change the way in which they operate. They move at different times of the day, they avoid the major road networks, and they basically undercut all compliant operators. We don't want that, so we have to adapt, we have to change, and we do think earned recognition is the way that we can do that. It frees up our resource. With things like NAS coming in as well, that's a major game changer. We've gone from like 36 cameras to over 10,000 overnight. So we've got the evidence there to move these forward for non-compliant operators to prove where they are and when they're there. You can't really argue with a date stamp from NAS. If you've got a vehicle with a registration, the vehicle's seen, you know, and they're saying they're parked up somewhere, well, no, actually you're on the M1 at that time and here's the picture to prove it. You haven't got really a get out of clause answer there. So where you can find out more. So to become a DVSA operator, become an approved IT supplier or auditor, you can always email me on my team at dvsaer@dvsa.gov.uk, and you can apply and find out more about the scheme at www.gov.uk/DVSA/earned recognition. I'm also here for the rest of the day until lunch, so do come see me, grab a business card or have a chat with me, and I appreciate your time. Thanks for listening.
We have a question here.
Thank you. Phil, hi, James Adcroft from Tesco. Phil, our standard as an industry is operator licensing, and one of the tenets of that is ensuring a level playing field in terms of competition. But today you spoke to us about, for example, TfL could say you need to be an earned recognition operator to work for us. How do you reconcile that, which errs on the side of a procurement standard? How do you reconcile that with the DVSA being the enforcement authority which supports us in having that level playing field on competition? Yeah,
of course. Just to expand on that, it will be earned recognition or equivalent of. So already some of these contracts hold you need to meet a certain standards by other compliance schemes that are already out there. So this is already going on. All that we're doing is giving people the option to also be in earned recognition to get those contracts. Currently, all the other ones that are out there are from private industry or private entities. So we're trying to level that playing field by giving you the option to not only be in one type of scheme, but you could be in multiple schemes to go for those contracts. But it's already happening, it's already in place. So we're trying to move earned recognition into that forum as well to give operators as much choice as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Training manager, King's Audit coaches, all I would like to know is if we apply to become an auditor, is the audit paperwork supplied by you or do we generate it ourselves?
We've got a mixture. So we've got a set template that you can use. We've got other auditors that use their own paperwork, but we will go out and approve it all before, I'm aware I'm cutting in and out. We will go out and approve it before you go and do the audit. So we will either supply you with it through a template or you can create your own. As long as it meets the standard that we recognise, then we're generally quite happy with that.